On Sunday, August 16, 2026, Mariah the Scientist posted a photograph to her Instagram story. The image showed her with young Thug inside a home. In the background, nearly 2 years old but still visible, were welcome home balloons. She wrote 4 words: "Happy B-Day, baby doll." He was turning 35. She was his fiancé. 9 months earlier, in December 2025, he had proposed during his Hometown Hero benefit concert in Atlanta. The engagement was public. The relationship status had shifted from girlfriend to something more permanent. By this time in 2026, she was also expecting his child, a detail he had proudly announced at a GQ event the previous year, telling reporters he had just put a baby in her. The pregnancy had been discussed openly enough that fans were tracking timelines and anticipating a summer 2027 delivery. None of this context appeared in the comments section that erupted after her birthday message was reposted by fan accounts. What appeared instead was confusion about word choice. "Baby doll, huh?" multiple users wrote. Others joked that Thugger should be the one calling Mariah that name. One user stated plainly, "I would never in my entire existence call my man baby doll. That's my name." Another wrote, "Baby doll." The reaction was not hostile. It was not accusatory. It was, instead, the internet performing its primary function, taking a piece of public data and immediately testing it against established categories. The internet needed to understand why she had selected this particular phrase. The word needed to be sorted. There is a particular vulnerability in being a public couple, where every word choice becomes a text to be analyzed. Mariah and Young Thug had lived through a version of this vulnerability that extended beyond typical celebrity scrutiny. Their relationship had been forced into public visibility at multiple crisis points. In May 2022, within months of them becoming official, he was arrested on RICO charges connected to alleged gang activity. She chose to stay, attending court regularly, performing while he was incarcerated, building her career during a period when most of her energy could have been consumed by his legal situation. Then, in late 2025, recorded phone calls from his jail time leaked to social media. In these conversations, he discussed infidelity that had occurred before his arrest. He spoke with another woman about having children with her. The leaks positioned him as someone who had lied to Mariah about the nature and timeline of his betrayal. The internet's response to this exposure was swift. Users debated whether she should leave him. They questioned the value of her loyalty. They reframed her devotion from romantic to naive. By the time of his release in October 2024, the relationship had been tested publicly in ways most couples never experience. And yet, they continued. They reconciled after the leaked recordings. He issued public apologies. In September 2025, he released music that directly addressed the situation. In a song called "Man, I Miss My Dogs," he apologized to multiple figures in his life and referenced his fear of losing her to the internet. Then came the proposal in December 2025. He got down on one knee at his own benefit concert in Atlanta. Fans recorded it. The internet celebrated it. A major crisis point appeared to have passed. The relationship had survived scandal, incarceration, exposure, and public judgment. They were getting married. The pregnancy announcement followed. He spoke about it to reporters at a GQ event, enthusiastically mentioning that he had just gotten her pregnant. She was preparing for her Heart Sold Separately tour in 2026 and would likely be performing while pregnant. This too became public information, discussed by fans who tracked every detail of their shared life. By August 2026, 8 months into the pregnancy, the relationship existed in a different phase. The urgency of the crisis had passed. The legal situation had been resolved. The infidelity had been addressed. The proposal had happened. A child was on the way. The relationship existed not as a constant drama, but as an ongoing commitment, now formalized through engagement and evidenced by a shared biological future. And then she called him baby doll on his birthday. The word choice created a moment of friction in the internet's categorization system. In the past, similar language had been used differently. When Young Thug had posted a birthday message for Mariah in October 2025, he had called her baby mama. That term had created its own controversy. Some people interpreted it as suggesting an unexpected pregnancy, others as a reference to an uncomfortable dynamic. Now, 9 months later, after the engagement and explicit pregnancy announcement, the term seemed even more loaded. Baby doll was something different. It was tender. It was diminutive. It was, by conventional understanding, a term more commonly used by men toward women or by someone toward a romantic partner of a traditionally feminine presentation. Question that emerged was not whether the message was real. It clearly was. The question was whether it was appropriate, whether it fit the template of how a woman speaks to her male partner in public. And this revealed something about language and expectation. The internet had learned scripts for relationship communication. A birthday message from a fiancé to her partner should follow certain patterns. It should be affectionate but not childlike. It should be personal but not confusing. It should communicate intimacy in recognizable ways. What it should not do is break the gender conventions embedded in language itself. Not because these conventions are universal or unchangeable, but because they are so deeply internalized that a deviation from them produces a moment of cognitive dissonance. Baby doll, to a man, required a reframing. Was it ironic? Was it reclaiming a term? Was it a private joke? Was she being playful? Was he okay with this? One user noted, baby doll, Mayo he ain't even repost, suggesting something about whether he approved of the term, whether the language choice would be reciprocated or acknowledged by him. It suggested that even in the space of a birthday message, relationship dynamics should be visible, should be recognizable, should fit established patterns. The comment implied a kind of protocol, an unspoken rule, about how these things were supposed to work. Users speculated about the meaning. Some thought it might be a term she had used before, that he was rejecting by not reposting. Others wondered if it was intentional, if she knew exactly how the internet would react. A few defended the choice, suggesting that couples develop their own language that outsiders would never fully understand. But the dominant tone was one of confusion, as though a basic rule of communication had been broken. By any measure of outcome, the relationship was successful. They were engaged, they were having a child together, they were appearing at public events together. She was building her music career while pregnant. He was navigating his probation and his own career revival. The events that had threatened to destroy the relationship, infidelity, incarceration, public exposure, had been survived. The relationship had evolved rather than fractured. And yet one word choice was enough to trigger questions about whether something was off, whether the dynamic was what it appeared to be, whether the relationship was truly what it seemed. This revealed less about Mariah and Young Thug and more about the mechanics of how the internet interprets public figures. We require relationships to make sense. We require language to fit established categories. When something deviates from expectation, even something as small as a birthday message, we need to understand the deviation. The truth is that baby doll could mean almost anything. It could be a term he had used for her years earlier that she was now reflecting back at him as an in-joke. It could be something discussed in private conversations that the public would never hear. It could be ironic. It could be affectionate. It could be a reference to something specific in their relationship that would be meaningful only to them, or it could be nothing more than a word choice made in a moment, granted significance only by the attention it received. What mattered, what always matters with celebrity relationships, is the gap between what we can see and what we can know. Mariah and Young Thug had been forced into public view repeatedly by his arrest, by his imprisonment, by the leaked recordings, by her loyalty, by his proposal, by her pregnancy. They had become symbols in a larger story about relationship resilience, about standing by someone through crisis, about choosing to stay when leaving would be understandable. The birthday message was not a scandal. It was simply a moment where the internet's need to categorize and understand ran up against the reality that intimate relationships do not always conform to public expectations. The word baby doll became significant only because we made it significant. It became a text to be analyzed only because we treated it as one. It became a puzzle to be solved only because we insisted on solving it. By all available evidence, the relationship was not in crisis. There was no third party involved. There was no infidelity, no leaks, no dramatic revelation. There was simply a woman calling her fiancé by a term that the internet found unexpected. And in that small deviation from expectation, in that moment of linguistic disruption, was revealed the full machinery of how public figures' relationships are consumed. Every word is a message. Every choice is significant. Every moment of affection is a text to be read. The real question was not what baby doll meant. It was why the internet needed it to mean something specific at all. Why couldn't it simply be a birthday greeting from someone who loved someone else, using language that made sense to them and no one else? The answer revealed something about modern culture's relationship with celebrity. We don't just watch their lives. We interpret them. We assign meaning. We demand that every gesture fit into a narrative we can understand. In the weeks after the post, the moment faded. Other news cycles moved in. Young Thug continued managing his probation conditions and working on new music. Mariah continued her tour, her body changing week by week with the pregnancy. The engagement remained. The baby continued to develop. Life moved forward in the way it does for all couples, famous or not, with or without an audience observing every choice. But for one brief moment in August, 3 words had disrupted the internet's ability to categorize a relationship. Not because anything was actually wrong, but because the words didn't fit the template. And that gap, that moment of incomprehension, said more about how we consume celebrity than it said about the 2 people at the center of the story. They had survived worse than confusion over terminology. They would survive this too,